Learning to solo over jazz standards is going to take you 10 times longer without the information in this video. Hey, it's Tobey from JazzMentl.com. Thank you for joining me for another one of my tutorials. I'm going to discuss the bebop language in this video. I think lots of people have videos on YouTube that talk about soloing using scales and chords and everything in between, but they don't really talk about the bebop language. So I'm going to explain what it is. I'm going to give you 4 2-5-1 progressions to practice using that bebop language. And then I'm going to make available to you the sheet music and the backing track so you can practice. Let's take a look at the 2-5-1 progressions that I have on this page. We're going to go through 4 different keys. Key of D, C, B flat, A flat. We're going down to different keys by whole tones, descending whole tones. Because the last chord of the first progression, for example, is D, major 7, we're going to convert that into a D minor 7 to take on the next progression. A little bit later on, I'm going to play the entire exercise for you. But let me do it section by section. Each 2-5-1 progression for each key. Let's start with the first one. And I'm going to play these slowly. Now, by itself, that might not sound like great soloing, but it contains several elements of the bebop language that, when in conjunction with an entire tune, if you saw a 2-5-1 progression in D major, it would sound great in the context of what's around it. So for example, we're starting in D, then we're moving into C. That's what happens in jazz. You move through different keys. So let's analyze this one and see what's really happening here. So the first thing you'll have is this chord. We're starting on, this is starting on the 11th. Just playing the chord. And then we're taking the scale from E minor, Dorian scale, and just going up the scale. Here's the scale. And then we're playing A7 flat 9, just the actual chord, but instead of playing it straight like this, we're gonna play the top note first. That's a very common thing in jazz. If you don't know what that is, it's part of the bebop language. Something that I call Stitt's bits. Sonny Stitt came up with this way of explaining how beboppers play things, and that's a really good example of a Stitt bit. It's a little bit of information that's part of the entire bebop language. So one more time. Scale, chord, and then we've got a passing note to the scale of D. There is instances of bebop scales in there. There is instances of chords, but they don't always start on the same note. They don't always follow the same type of movement, but essentially it's chord to scale to chord to scale and some passing notes and some rhythms thrown in there. Let's move on to the next one and see what's happening when we switch to the key of C major. So we ended in D. We're going to switch that to D minor and do a 2-5-1 of C. So here's our solo. We are not going to talk too much about left-hand voicings, but there's some good ones here, so you should absolutely practice them. Notice that I'm always anticipating the beat in most cases with an 8th note. This is an 8th note before the beat, 8th note before the beat, 8th note before the beat. That's what helps and drives the progression forward. When I play the entire exercise for you, I'm going to play it pretty much as written and also take a little bit of liberty with the left-hand voicings. So let's analyze this just like we did the first time around. So we're starting off first with a chord, and then we're moving to a scale. So let's do that. So when we get here, this is really the bebop scale. So we're just coming down the bebop scale. So chord, bebop scale. If you don't know what bebop scales are, it's part of the bebop language. I'm going to put a link to a video that talks specifically about that a little bit later on in this video. That's just chromatics. We're approaching the destination note, which is D, right here with chromatics. and then bebop scale. So the bebop scale for C is this. The major bebop scale with the passing note being G sharp. Okay, one more time. So the next two 5 switches from C major 7 to C minor 7. I think we ended off here, and then we're just going to change that to a different inversion of C minor and start with the scale. Slowly, it doesn't sound too much like the bebop language, but it definitely is. So we're just moving up the chord in C minor, starting on the 3rd, and just coming down the scale. And then when we get here, this is the bebop scale over F7. So our F7 bebop scale is this. So I'm just coming down the scale, and then just a little bebop thing. That's part of the bebop language. It's just something that players do. You can explain it by saying, hey, it's a bebop scale, but it's in a certain order that just makes it sound jazz. And then we've got chromatics over B flat major 7. So just chromatics using triplets. That's very bebop. And then just down the scale. Then we're switching from B flat major 7 to B flat minor 7 and going into the key of A flat. Here we go. You'll notice that each one of these two 5s is a little bit different. That's because the way the chords and the scales lay underneath the fingers, you have to switch things up a little bit. It's harder to play certain types of lines in certain keys. So everything changes. So you have to kind of go through all of these different keys. All right, so let's start with the B minor 7. We're coming down the chord. Right, it's just a straight B flat minor 7 chord. The 9th. Now, there's a real bebop, what we call enclosure. So you've got overnotes and an undernote heading to this destination note, which is G. So you're getting there from over and then under. Okay, they're just passing notes, but it's, again, part of that bebop language that we're learning. That is just our chord, E flat, 7 flat 9. Okay? Scale, and then just the bebop scale going down. A flat bebop scale. All right, let me play the entire exercise for you, going through all 4 different keys. When we get back, and it's only going to take a minute to play this, when we get back, I'll put a link to the sheet music and the backing track so you can download it and play it for yourself. Okay, now is a good time to put a link to this sheet music and the backing track, bass and drums, so that you can practice it several times. I can tell you that if you don't download and practice this and learn and understand this language, it's going to take you 10 times longer to be a great jazz soloist. Let me put a link to the entire download up here in the corner. You can go and check that out. And if you'd like to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to our lovely little channel here on YouTube, you're more than welcome to do that. We'd love to have you. And if you're looking for more information about bebop scales that we touched upon in this video, if you need more clarification on what they are, I'm going to put a link to a video about bebop scales with another exercise for you.